Okay, I think we're going. I'm going to hit the...
Cancer got you down? Pretty grim, huh? How about a show that turns the grim into a grin? Way to go! You made it here to the Cancer and Comedy Podcast, the show to lift you up with hope and humor that heals.
Let me get out of there. There we go. All right, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Hello, lifter uppers. I'm Deb Krier, the co-host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer-impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call...
Oh my gosh. What happened here? Are we back? You're back?
I'm back, but you're not back. Gotta love live.
I don't know what happened here, but I got to add. All
There
right.
you are. Okay.
I think
we'll just jump back into
we're
this.
still live, and we're doing live here. But Deb, finish your thought, and we'll just keep rolling here.
Right. So this is our first live, folks, and so
If you can't tell, yeah.
Yep. So let me start over with this. Hey there, lifter uppers. I'm Deb Krier, the co-host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer-impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to do a live stream, as you see, for the first time to share the story, vision, and purpose of Cancer and Comedy. Now, here's the host of Cancer and Comedy, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, thank you, Deb. And here we are. We've gone live. We had a few little hiccups here already, but we are having some fun together. Here on Cancer and Comedy, we have a couple of things that we like to do. We like to share that there is hope for people who deal with cancer, and that your life's not over with yet if you have cancer, and that you can approach it and cope with cancer or things like that with hope and humor. And we like to say that's turning the grim of cancer into the grin of a fulfilled and happy life. And so that's what Deb and I are looking to do by this. We've been doing the Cancer and Comedy podcast on audio for about a year or so now. We decided to give it a shot here on live stream. And one of those reasons is because of my wonderful co-host here, Deb, and she has the website and the Facebook presence page, Try Not to Die.live. And we've got to know each other at a podcast conference a year and a half or a couple years ago now. And she has an infectious laugh, and she has a way about her which really speaks to people who deal with some profound effects of cancer and things like that. So love to be with you, Deb. We've had a lot of fun together so far, what we've done audio-wise on Cancer Comedy, have we not?
Oh, we definitely have. You have had some absolutely phenomenal guests who have made us laugh and maybe cry, but definitely made us think. And so I encourage anybody who is watching this to go to the website and check out our prior episodes.
Yeah. Well, Deb, one of the things we like to do almost every episode we have is I like to tell a dumb dad joke or two. So you ready for
Love
a couple?
your dad jokes.
Oh, well, that's I'm even wearing my dad jokes are how I roll t-shirt here today. And that's just part of what we do. So what happens to a frog when its car breaks down?
I don't know.
It gets towed. It gets towed. Okay. I got so bored the other day, Deb, that I got so bored I made a belt out of my watches.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a waste of time.
Cute.
Oh,
Cute.
boy.
See, folks, this is why you need to listen to our podcast.
Yeah, well, you get real gems like that. But one of the gems I always enjoy getting out of our conversations is hearing about the stories that we have on our podcast, but I think it's important here on this live stream for Deb and I to tell our story. We got together at a podcast conference because we both had some similar stories that we both were dealing with cancer on some level or another, and we both had an approach that included a touch of humor and even some laughter and a kind of a positive approach to deal with this. Some people call it therapeutic humor, but we have to take that approach. And I loved Deb's approach that she has the website trynottodie.live, and there's a whole story behind that, and there's a whole story about what she's about. So Deb, why don't you just take a moment here and just share with the folks your story of how that came about and your kind of approach to this whole trynottodie.live. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for having me as the co-host of your program. I tell people I'm Ed McMahon to your Johnny Carson. And so it's so much fun. But my story started back in 2015. I went and had my annual physical, good little person that I was. And they discovered that I had what they said was stage 0 breast cancer. I had microcalcifications. I didn't have a lump, a bump, or anything like that, but nothing to get overly concerned about. So, kind of went for several weeks without much concern. And I have a background in this. Years ago, I worked for the American Cancer Society and for an oncologist. So I know just enough to be dangerous, right?
Okay.
And so, had several follow-up tests. Those all showed, not a reason to worry. Then we finally did pull some lymph nodes, and 8 of 12 lymph nodes were positive for cancer. So that meant that not only did I have cancer, it had spread. So at that point, I had decided to do the very traditional approach. I know that each person needs to select what works for them, but I was going to do chemo, surgery, radiation. So finally met with an oncologist several months into this process, right? And she agreed that, yeah, that would be what we would do. So I had a very massive dose of chemo. And actually it was 8 different drugs. Was fine for a couple of days, and then my world crashed. I developed a complication that at that point I was the only person in the world that had ever survived it. And luckily my doctor knew what it was. I was able to get emergency surgery, but I did go into septic shock, which is very hard on the body. I believe the stat is around 75% of people who go into septic shock do not survive because it is a massive infection that attacks your organs. So I was in the hospital for about 7 weeks, in and out of ICU, lots of other surgeries. It was just really a lot of fun. But I really did have fun with it. I mean, it was as much as I could. We tried to joke and laugh, but then I had, got out, had surgery. I had a double mastectomy, had a complication from it that my surgeon had never seen. If you haven't figured out, I do things differently. I have to be special, right?
You got to just push limits, don't you?
I just have to really challenge them. But then things, kind of straightened out. I went through radiation with absolutely no issues. We had decided that chemotherapy was clearly not going to work. And so I do a different type of treatment that I actually still do. I get an infusion every 21 days. And we'll just keep doing that for as long as my body says okie dokie. But several other things along the way, because septic shock does cause a many long-term complications. But several years ago, was talking with my business coach, and she said, you didn't go through everything you have gone through without using it to help others. And I said, yeah, but I don't want to be cancer girl. But I knew that she was right. And in any way that I could help others on this journey, I would do that. So that was when I started trynottoDie.live. The story behind the name is, when my mother was here, she came out obviously when I was very critically ill. And one of the times when a medical person left, came and did something and then left my room, I got the disapproving mother face.
Oh, okay.
And I said, what? And she said, you did not say thank you. And I said, oh, for heaven's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die here.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so then later on, when I was thinking about it, I thought, that really is the case. We get so caught up in trying to not die that we forget that we have to live.
All right.
And so that was why, the website is trying not to die.live. That is where we've gone with everything with it. And it is about helping anyone who is on a journey with cancer, whether they have cancer themselves or if they are supporting someone who has cancer. And we have a very active Facebook group, but it's about how can we help each other through this challenge.
Yeah. Well, I did want to mention, I put your website, trynottodie.live, in. It'll be in the description here on the YouTube
Great,
and
thank
on
you.
and in the other places that we have this land here as well. And I really commend people to go there. Lots of great resources you put together on your website and on your Facebook group, and quite active there. And just love that energy about you, because what you said there was really a part of my story and part of the vision of why we do this podcast about,
Right.
which has to do with, let's live and let's not focus on the dying. Let's not, all of us are kind of under a death sentence in a way, from the day we were
Right.
born.
Yeah. Well, we
There
don't
is
get out of this,
there is a finite end to this
yeah,
life
we've
we
got
have.
that expiration date.
So let's enjoy that, and whatever circumstances come around, be they cancer or something else, it doesn't have to be the end of the story. And for
Right.
you can be a new story set in a different way, with different angles and different purposes to it. In my case, I'm a retired pastor, and went through a lot of great things in 43 years as a church pastor, and included a lot of time dealing with folks with cancer and other bad diseases. And I noticed during those years and those times with people, there was 2 or 3 groups of people. There was kind of the stoic people who just kind of got through it. And there were the people who really fought it and were really crazy, angry, and mad. And so there's other people who, in a way, took it in stride. This is a part of my life, and oftentimes would tell great stories. And many times the stories had a bit of humor. There were family stuff. There's this kind of things. And I always saw the ones who were having the most fun, even the most dire circumstances, were the ones who were. Like the biblical thing says, a cheerful heart is good medicine. So to have a cheerful heart. And so I saw that in my ministry going through that. And then just as the way fate would have it, I retired a couple years ago. And just a month or so after I retired, I went to see my doctor. This is almost exactly 2 years ago now. See my doc, and the blood test came back. Hey, Brad, we got to check this out. You got some elevated PSA things going on here. And that led to a whole battery of tests that indicated that I had prostate cancer. And so that got my attention. Got my attention. And so I got the final diagnosis of prostate cancer just a couple days after Christmas Day.
Wow.
And so I just remember getting that phone call, and my initial reaction to the phone call was kind of just a chuckle. It's kind of like,
Really?
this isn't, like, really. Yeah, just kind of, and it was kind of an attitude. I kind of just had to laugh to keep from crying. I handed the phone to my wife, and we had to deal with that reality. And so that was that image went through my head. I had to laugh to keep from crying because it's such a serious news to deal with. At Christmas time, kind of exasperated it. So I kind of get this little funk, kind of this why me, all this kind of stuff, Christmas, all this kind of stuff. And just retired. My wife and I had big plans for traveling and so on. And just kind of, that all seemed to be kind of went into a foggy place for me. But as fate would have it, a day or two later, my wife and I were scheduled to spend some time with our 2 granddaughters, who were about 2 and 4 at that time, just delightful little girls. And we went out and did, kind of the arcade and the bowling thing, and just our day with them. And we ended up at a McDonald's restaurant just to have the Happy Meals and stuff. We don't do that stuff, too much stuff anymore, but the girls wanted to do that. So we did that, and the Happy Meals and the little toys and everything. These two little girls are squealing and delighting and having a great time. And they had no, I mean, they're 2 and 4 years old. They're giggly little girls, and they had no idea what I'm going through, my wife and I are going through, really. They just have a great time with their grandma and grandpa. And so we were having a great time with them. But you know, Deb, what I had right then was I had kind of had a bit of a vision right there, seeing those two little girls there. They are 2 and 4 years old. I think, I really want to see these little girls when they're young women of like 22 and 20 or something like this, and whatever going on in their life. And right now my prognosis is not that good. So I need to do whatever I need to do in every area of life. That included, kind of the physical health aspects. That included my connection with God. That included my strategic thinking in terms of what to do, and then how do I want to make something good out of this. And for whatever reason, that kind of went back to the image of that laugh to keep from crying thing. And I thought about, okay, what do I really, I just made a commitment right then. Whatever time I have left, my prognosis at that time wasn't the best. If I didn't do anything about my cancer, they said 2 to 5 years. And that didn't sound too good to me. And so I said, well, what do I need to do to live a fulfilled life no matter what? No matter what. And so that kind of led me to think about, okay, here I could take my years of ministry experience, 43 years, and talked a little bit about that a minute ago. I can also take the fact that I, several years prior, had earned a doctoral degree in transformational leadership, which is where that's all about how to think strategically about how you can transform yourself and others to be effective, to add value to either your life or your organization or to the greater good. And so I got a doctoral degree in this area. And then I also realized that a lesson learned from some of the people I had been with is if you have a kind of attitude with a bit of humor in it, it helps. It helps. And I began to study this thing called therapeutic humor a little bit, which has to do with how you can apply kind of a hopeful, grateful attitude with a little humor and laughter in it. And it does help. It helps you cope. And we like to say cope with hope. And so not too long after that, I met you and we put our heads together and said, hey, why don't we... how about a podcast to kind of focus on this area? And we decided to call it Cancer and Comedy, not so much to be disrespectful or anything like that if anybody deals with, or to not to dissuade the seriousness of having cancer. It's just not a ha-ha comedic thing all the time, but how you can use comedy then to kind of help you to cope with the drama. We kind of like to see it as kind of the two sides of the kind of the Shakespearean mask. You've got the tragedy over here, and you've got comedy, kind of the two sides of life. And so we put our heads together and to do this together, and we launched it just about a year ago. We're recording this in August of 2024, and we launched this in August of 2023, and we've done a year's worth of podcast episodes, and we've had a lot of fun doing it with the whole image here of what can we do for you and I together and with our guest then to offer, we like to call it, how can we speak to our audience of cancer-impacted people or people impacted by something profound, be it cancer or some other health-related thing or something else that profoundly impact them, and help them to cope with it with two elements. We call it hope and humor. Visions of hope and of humor to help them have some healing in that. And that's what we're all about. And we love to tell stories. You've already told a great story. I've told a story. But we've had some other great stories too. So what do you think we've learned a little bit? What's your idea of the vision we've put together here? And who are we trying to talk to here? Who are we trying to be helpful to?
Anybody can benefit from what we're talking about. And obviously it is for those who are impacted by cancer, whether it's them or a loved one, friend, coworker, whoever. But, how can we bring a little bit of levity? Because it is a very serious subject. I mean, when someone is told you have cancer, probably the first thing that goes through most people's minds is, I'm dead. right? And so how can we help them through that? And there are many, many studies that show the benefits of laughing. I mean, it raises your endorphins, it helps your blood pressure, it actually helps decrease pain. All of these various things.
What happened here?
We went black. I think I can just keep talking. Um, and so it improves
There we
your
go.
immune system, all sorts of things. And so it is so important to include humor. And sometimes it's kind of dark humor. Several of the guests who you have had on, um, it has been kind of some dark humor type of things. Others have been just funny. I mean, you've had several comedians
Yeah.
on, but it is, I think it's something where we can show that it's okay to feel bad, mad, angry, sad, all of those things, but then we need to laugh about it too. I have a fake name.
Okay.
When I
Yeah,
now I
you
only
got to tell this story because
Yes,
it's a great story.
yes,
Yeah.
I now I only use it when it's somebody who knows me, right? Because it gets poor medical people very concerned if you give them the wrong name. But they say, what is your name and date of birth? And I look at them and I smile sweetly and I say Anastasia Beaverhausen. And I have no idea where that came from. I think it was it's not original. I've stolen it from somebody. But in the infusion room where I go have my treatment, they've decided that it's Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen. And so of course you must do the queen wave, right? Um but it is about how can we lighten the burden, maybe? But we have had some very serious topics. I mean, we've talked about mental health issues, and just some things that are very serious. One of the things that I love is that you bring your faith in as part of it. We have a very important faith it and break it session on every time, and I think that's just something that helps people, and so it is, how can we help others?
Yeah. Well, it's that hopeful piece has different aspects to it. We want to offer hope
Mhm,
that maybe has humor infused in it, but sometimes it has
mhm,
to do with education, and
mhm,
sometimes
mhm.
it has to do with how we just relate to one another.
Right. Mhm,
First, we've talked about kind of how we relate to friends
mhm,
or how we relate to
mhm,
relatives when we
mhm,
deal with cancer diagnosis or
mhm.
bedside manner of doctors, things of
Right.
this
Mhm, mhm,
of this nature. And we've talked to comedians and other folks and
mhm,
who in the in medical and mental health communities who helps us to navigate those
mhm,
things as well. We had a guy named Rick Roberts on who
mhm,
early on in our time together who was deal with prostate cancer as well as I do,
mhm,
and talked about how there was some dark times
mhm,
in that process. And we had a guy named Frank King on, another comedian on here
mhm.
recently who puts a humorous slant on even suicide ideation, which is pretty
Right.
serious to deal with.
Mhm,
And I remember we had Tanya on from the Other Side podcast talks about how there's a whole process to get from the point you have cancer to the
mhm,
other side and how there's
mhm,
processes there.
mhm,
And so those guests we've had on have been helpful. But I know you and
mhm,
I have had a lot of interchange about our own
mhm.
experiences and our
Right.
own journey
Mhm,
medically and so on. And I think that's helpful as well. And
mhm.
as well, one of the things I'm really hopeful that we can do moving forward, Deb, is to have even more um, interaction with our, we call them our lifter uppers, our audience.
Right. Mhm,
And we've had a fair amount of that, but would like to do even more of
mhm,
that, and just want to encourage people, even here on the chat, if you want to check out the chat we hear on the live streams that we do. We're going to be doing these live streams. The plan right now is every fourth Wednesday of each month to have at least one live stream a month and maybe add more along as we go. But that's one place you can do. You can go to the YouTube stream and hopefully on Facebook soon.
mhm.
But youtube.com, Cancer and Comedy, and that's one place to find that. You can always go to our website, cancerandcomedy.com, to find us as well. We have links there. And then you also can leave us a voice message, and we would love to hear from people at cancerandcomedy.com/voice message. And I put notes about all those things in the description here of our episode here today. We love to hear from those folks, don't we?
We do. And I think that's one of the things that is so important about this is just talking about it, right? I think that's one of the people think, ooh, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want them to feel bad. We don't want, all these various things. And especially when you're talking about something like prostate cancer, breast cancer, all of those things that might be, a little embarrassing on occasion.
Sure, of course.
But, it happens, right? And so it's important to realize it is so important to talk about it. One of the things that people always tell me is my sister, my coworker, my friend was just diagnosed and I don't know what to do. And so because they don't want to upset them, they don't want to, they don't want to make them feel bad, all those things. So they don't know what to say. And so they don't do anything. And then, of course, we, as the person who is on this journey, thinks that they don't care and that they don't love us. And I tell people one of the things that you can say, well, I always say, Hallmark has cards. You can send cards. But I also
But at the same time, Deb, we've also offered many times practical advice to people out of our own experience and the experience of our guests, how you can try to handle those situations, like you just said, Hallmark has cards.
Because, I tell people, it is perfectly fine to say, I am so sorry you're going through this. But then don't say, Brad, just tell me if there's anything you need, because we can't get our heads around that. We have so many other things we're dealing with, but be specific.
Right.
Brad, can we bring you dinner on Friday? Can we do this? Can we take your kids to a movie? Can we do that? Because then our little cancer-battled brains can grasp on that and go, okay, that works.
Yeah, that is awesome advice right there. And that's one of the things we really want to do. I know it's one of our values we've talked about is this is not to be some exercise in medical jargon, anything like that. This is to be practical and pragmatic, to help people cope with the situation.
Right.
We offer this some directions here, not medical advice. I have a doctoral degree, but it's not in medicine. I have a doctorate of ministry, just to be clear of that. But we want to offer people a sense of how to navigate all this stuff, because it is, when you jump into it, I know you have had really long hospitalizations and serious matters, as I have as well. But some of the people we talked to have had some serious matters, and you're thrown into just a whole different world.
Right.
And it can just throw you off completely. And not only us who have been cancer impacted by the disease itself, but family, friends, others in our life. And if we can offer just some direction to be helpful to people, and we do that, what we do through our conversations here on our podcast, you do it on trynottoDie.live. We also offer a free short-term audio course about how we teach. We talk about the ACTS plan, ACTS plan. A is for taking action. C is to connect with a higher power, the spiritual aspect. The T is to think through the process. And the S is to serve others with love. And just say that, we offer that to people. You can always go to cancerandcomedy.com/free. You can get that little course we've got to be helpful to you there. And we offer these practical ways to cope with hope. And a touch of humor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay, as we were saying, to feel bad. But then what can we do to get out of that funk?
Yeah. Oh, that is awesome. Well, what kind of encouragement do we want to leave our listeners with here today, Deb, before we say goodbye in this first live stream we've ever done? What kind of a good word do you want to leave our folks with here today?
I want to say you are not alone.
Yes.
Ask for help. Turn to others, and know that there is help out there and there is support for you.
And I just want to be clear that there's support out there with your family, your local community, to be sure. But actually, one of the important things we want to do here at Cancer Comedy is we want to be a part of your community as well. And we are here for you. even personally, you can reach out through the website, cancerandcomedy.com, leave a comment or leave something there. The cancerandcomedy.com/follow is one good way of doing that. But you can do that, and you can reach out to us. And we are looking to form a community, and we see the live streams as a way of forming this community even deeper and further, because we basically have a vision, don't we, Deb, of being a place where people can find a place where coping is okay. The way I like to see it is that, we are really we are targeted towards people who we know that we're just not done yet. No matter what is going on in our life, if we've got a cancer diagnosis, we're not done yet. And we're going to live life to the fullest to the day we're not here anymore. And one of the ways you and I have chosen to do that is through the Cancer and Comedy podcast at cancerandcomedy.com. We have other things we're involved with as well. I know I'm in Indianapolis. I do things in my local community. You're in Atlanta. You do things in your local community and with family and friends and so on, and other things we're active in. I know, sometime we'll talk all about your world of showing dogs. We'll talk about that sometime.
I know. What a bizarre world.
And the live stream. But all these things are part of this deal. But we are here for you, Lifter Upper, our friends there to be helpful to you, and we want to do just that.
Right. Yeah, and we call people lifter uppers because we're lifting each other up.
Yeah, the term we often like to say is, we like to take people from the grim of cancer to the grin of an uplifted life, to lift people up, and because cancer can get you down, and we're here to lift you up, right? We're here to lift you up.
We are.
We thank you for being with us, and I just want to say a big thank you to you, Deb, for being a great partner in this endeavor. I look forward to more good things to come, and we're going to be sharing a lot and offering a lot to our lifter uppers here on the Cancer and Comedy live stream, right?
I love it. I love it. And as Dr. Brad said, this brings us to the close of our live stream of the Cancer and Comedy podcast. Cancer and Comedy is all about telling uplifting stories of people like you who are kicking cancer's butt with healing through hope and humor. As we've said, you can join those of us who are turning their grim into grins by telling us your uplifting story. Just go to cancerandcomedy.com/voice message. Well, that's all for now. Please join us next time on Cancer and Comedy. And if you like what you hear, please pass the podcast on to someone in your life who needs to turn their grin into a grin. For Dr. Brad Miller, I'm Deb Krier, reminding you that a cheerful heart is good medicine.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Cancer and Comedy podcast with Dr. Brad Miller. Make sure you visit our website, cancerandcomedy.com, where you can follow the show and get our newsletter. Like what you hear? Then tell a friend about Cancer and Comedy, the show that lifts your spirits with hope and humor that heals. Until next time, keep turning the grim into a grin.